Hello, critical thinkers. In this video, we're moving away from the New York State Department of Corrections and moving to the state of Alabama. This story is straight out of a science fiction novel. I try not to use profanity and curse in my videos, but sometimes you do need the occasional cuss word to emphasize the brutality that's occurring. I was first made aware of this story from a YouTuber by the name of Introverted Rockstar. He is the same YouTuber that alerted me to the Robert Brooks murder. I will link up his video and his channel in this description, but don't go over there now. Wait until the end of my video before you go to his channel. Fortunately, the Alabama Department of Corrections is basically saying to families of incarcerated loved ones who pass away, you ain't ish. Not only do they say you ain't ish while your loved one is alive, but also in death. This article is from Alabama.com. The article is entitled Alabama Gave UAB Permission to Harvest Organs from Dead Prison Inmates, University claims. The families of men who died in Alabama prisons and were returned without all of their organs sat in court Tuesday, watching as lawyers for the University of Alabama at Birmingham argued that the school's contract allowed them to keep organs after autopsies. The hearing had mentions of Nazi Germany, rats, artificial intelligence, and illegal organ harvesting. As the family members shook their heads from the audience, their lawyers fought back. For a quick second, think about it. Your incarcerated loved one passes away, you get their body, you're on the road to getting a funeral set up for them, and the funeral home is telling you that your loved one is missing their body parts. How gruesome is that to hear as a loved one? Your family member got disrespected in prison, and then after they've passed, they get disrespected immensely again from these same institutions. This is extremely hard to believe. Quote, they are retaining organs without authority, said Michael Strickland. There's nothing in the contract that says they can harvest and retain these organs. You can't just illegally harvest an organ, and that's what we have here. The family's lawyer compared the situation to a funeral home taking the skin off a body because they like someone's tattoos. Quote, that's Nazi Germany. That's what we're doing, Your Honor. The comments came during a hearing at the Montgomery County Courthouse, where lawyers for UAB and the prison system asked Judge J.R. Gaines to dismiss the case. A UAB lawyer said the contract between the Alabama Department of Corrections and the university, which was terminated after the lawsuits were filed, was a legal contract between two state entities. Nothing the university did while performing the autopsies fell outside of the contract, he says. Pause for a second. Notice this, that this contract was terminated after these lawsuits were filed. So after they got caught basically engaging in this action is when they stopped doing it. That is just absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. The University of of Alabama and Birmingham should be ashamed of themselves for doing this. Alabama Department of Corrections should feel ashamed of themselves for engaging in this. And then here's the funny thing. You can put anything in writing. You can create a contract. It doesn't mean that it's legal and it doesn't mean that it's ethical. So shame on you, both these institutions, for doing this to the family members. Absolutely disgusting. Let's go back to the article. Alabama law is absolutely clear, said UAB attorney Jay Ezeal. It is a state contract between two state agencies. He added that UAB, under that agreement, was allowed to keep organs for testing purposes. He didn't clarify what type of testing. The families of Arthur Olpin Stapler, Jim William Kennedy, Anthony Perez Brackens, Kevin Lamar Moore, Charles Singleton, Alice McIntyre, and Barry Culver are each suing the Alabama Department of Corrections, the University of Alabama system, which operates the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and its medical school, and other various people associated with those institutions. The families are represented by lawyers Strickland, Lauren Ferrino, Dustin Fowler, and Melina Goldfarb. Strickland and Farino argued in court on Tuesday. Ezell told the judge that the cases should be dismissed on several legal grounds, including that Alabama law gives the prison system and UAB's Board of Trustees immunity in lawsuits. He added that organs aren't personal property, so several of the family's claims were invalid. I just the audacity of this statement to say that organs aren't personal property, and they don't belong to the family member. That is absolutely disgusting. The argument that attorneys can make in these civil cases. Ezell also said he thought some of the case law included in the lawsuits came from fake, hallucinated cases and was written by Chat GPT or some form of artificial intelligence. This is just an example of attorneys throwing shade at each other. In trying to respond, I'm trying to sort through what is real and what is not real, he said. What is Alabama law and not what Chat GPT made up to be Alabama law? Strickland, who spoke on behalf of the families, assured the judge that no case law was made up. I have no idea how to do that, he quipped. I'm old. Strickland argued against the immunity claim, saying that the contract itself was illegal. He and Ferraino cited a state law that allows only district attorneys, circuit judges, the governor, or attorney general to order autopsies, not prison wardens nor prison representatives. He also cited state law that prohibits medical examiners from retaining organs without approval from next of kin. So here's what we have. Just one thing very important to note is that Strickland is, citing state law that prohibits examiners from retaining organs without approval from next of kin. So there is a law in place that protects the family members. And obviously, we have the University of Alabama and we have the Alabama State Department of Corrections not adhering to this law. Back to the article. Following last year's controversy, the department does not currently have a contract with an outside provider to conduct autopsies. The deaths that do result in autopsies, as required by state law, are conducted by the Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences. In court filings, UAB's lawyers have said they could try to find the organs and return them to the families. But Ferraino and Strickland said that's not enough. The organs would presumably be returned in a bag, and then the families would have to pay for DNA testing to confirm their identity. Then they would have to disinter their loved ones if they had already been buried and rebury them. Oh boy, this is disgusting. This is absolutely disgusting. Think about this. Your loved one who passes away, and these institutions involved in the autopsy remove the organs of your loved one, and they're saying, yeah, we can try to give them back to you, and they'll give these organs back to you in a plastic baggie. How absolutely disrespectful does this sound? How does this sound? Back to the article. Strickland added that the string of prison autopsies performed by the world renowned university financially benefited UAB. Just let that marinate for a quick second. I'm pausing. Let it marinate. This is financially benefiting the University of Alabama in Birmingham. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. Back to the article. He mentioned the Henrietta Lacks case, where a woman's blood cells were taken in 1951 and used for scientific research. according to the National Institutes of Health. Lax cells led to lucrative discoveries from which her family received no financial benefit. Quote, that's what was able to happen here, Strickland said. He said UAB wasn't even denying they kept the organs. They were only arguing they had the right to do it. Ferraino said she suspects the practice of keeping organs without family notification has been happening since the prison and UAB first entered into their prison contract in 2006. She said UAB's argument that the whole case comes down to a contract dispute could not be farther from the truth. And Strickland said the issue might not just be with prisoner autopsies. He said a coroner called him to say that a young girl who died of a gunshot to the head had her pelvis removed during a UAB postmortem exam years ago, and the university was now trying to give it back. You can't just dump them out into the public because you got caught. They want to hide it behind the contract, Strickland said. It's an illegal contract to start with. They violated the law. That's exactly what I was saying before. You can put together anything in writing, it doesn't make it legal. Back to the article. Ferraino said UAB, it seems, is trying to purge their shelves of organs taken unlawfully. The judge said he would give each side several weeks to submit their arguments in writing. Ezeal told the judge he had spent the morning being called a Nazi, a rat, and a liar. Quote, I don't think he called you a rat, the judge replied. He said rats were scattering. Don't take it personally. Following the hearing, family members gathered around the courthouse steps with their lawyers. Kelvin Moore's family gathered closer around Ferraino. In their lawsuit last year, the family said they were given a sealed red bag with a container inside that UAB claimed contained Kelvin's organs. That happened after a supervisor in the pathology department told them it was the UAB policy, quote, not to return organs to families after an autopsy. Simone Moore, Kelvin Moore's brother, said he wants someone to be held accountable for what happened to his brother's body. Those organs are a part of my brother's body and a part of your loved one. They do not belong to the state, he said, as other families quietly agreed. This is wrong on every level. We cannot ever be made whole. There's not a day that we don't think about our loved ones and what we had to go through. We are forever scarred and ever destroyed because of this act, and it must stop because UAB has run amok. They have run rogue. His mother wore a silver necklace with a heart-shaped pendant, framing an old photo of Kelvin. We are not going to let this go, she said quietly. That's the end of the article. I agree 100% with the families. Do not let this go. Stay on the you know what's. They need to be held accountable for what they did. Both the University of Alabama in Birmingham and the Alabama Department of Corrections need to be held accountable for this atrocity, this science fiction novel gone crazy. This is horrible. Continue to hold these individuals and institutions accountable for what they did to your incarcerated loved ones, both while they were incarcerated and after death. Now let's jump to a video about this same topic.
They were using the consent of the warden to authorize that, and that's unlawful.
Well, the attorney representing several families expressing her frustration tonight. Thank you so much for joining us at 6. I'm Ian Wright.
And I'm Brittany Decker. The families say their loved ones who died while incarcerated in Alabama were missing organs after their autopsies. Our WVTM 13's Lisa Crane is live in Birmingham tonight. Lisa, you spoke to this attorney. These families have a lot of questions. Are they getting any answers at this point?
Well, not really. You know, one lawsuit has already been filed, and attorney Lauren Ferraino says several more are coming. The families want answers about why their loved ones' organs were kept by either the Department of Forensic Science or the UAB, and they say they also want to stop the practice allowing it to happen. Brandon Dodson, Charles Singleton, and Kelvin Moore, all incarcerated at the time of their deaths. and all missing organs when their families receive their bodies.
UAB has found this, what they think is a loophole that allows them to collect organs from this endless supply of dead bodies that are coming out of the Department of Corrections.
And there's one thing important to note. The article I read prior spoke about the financial benefit that's occurring. It is obvious that the Alabama Department of Corrections is financially benefiting from this relationship. The University of Alabama in Birmingham is financially benefiting from these organs from conducting research. So unfortunately, it's money over people, over family of incarcerated loved ones.
Attorney Lauren Verano says that loophole really isn't a loophole. We reached out to UAB today, who sent this statement saying, in part, "We only conduct autopsies with consent or authorization, including authorization for the final disposition of the organs and tissues." But who's guilty?
Just to pause it really quick. It's funny because people can make these statements, but since everyone watching here is a critical thinker, you have to look at what they're not telling you. Who is giving the authorization? Who's giving the okay to have these organs harvested?
giving that consent? Verano says it's the prison wardens, not the family, which Verano says is unlawful.
The law is clear. Governor Ivey signed into law in 2021 a bill that prevents the retention of organs without family knowledge and permission. It is clear.
Verano says she was contacted by a UAB medical student months ago who said they were disturbed because they were seeing a disproportionate number of specimens in the lab coming from people who were incarcerated at the time of their death.
I had
to pause it there. There was something very important to note that the news lady just said. There was a whistleblower. A whistleblower alerted that she was seeing a large amount of bodies that were coming from the Department of Corrections having this done, their organs removed, and she, in essence, blew the whistle. Blew the whistle. She said something about this. So we have to thank. I'm not sure whether they said it was him or her, but we have to thank that individual for bringing this to our attention and for the birth of these lawsuits that ended up coming out.
guess what the motivation is. I would say money. Isn't that usually what it is? It may be a matter of having the organs for medical research, but what does that medical research lead to? Money.
If you found value in this video, please consider joining the channel and becoming a critical thinker or a critical supporter. Membership is less than the price of a cup of Starbucks coffee. It really helps to financially support the channel. If not, no worries. Feel free to like the video, comment on the video, share the video, and if you haven't already, become a subscriber. My goal is to give you honest and direct feedback and go deeper than what the mainstream media is telling you. Take care, God bless, and see you next time.